In this video right here, you can see the average gamer sneaking up on the representation of Ubisoft and driving them directly into the ground, and the ground representing the 2024 gaming landscape. Now, of course, this isn't going to be all about Star Wars Outlaws. We just have to couple this with the other disaster on the horizon. And this one right here perfectly represents what we're dealing with in regards to Ubisoft, because YouTuber Jor Raptor confirms that there are no melee weapons in Star Wars Outlaws and definitely no lightsabers. Instead, yeah, you get this hand-to-hand combat where Stormtrooper, theoretically a trained individual that would go through the equivalent of army training, gets thrown to the ground by a 5.5-foot tall, very strong-jawed woman. Great and fantastic, but it also isn't something that we haven't not seen in the realm of Star Wars recently. 2022's Obi-Wan Kenobi show, where you had, I forget her name, but she was Ilaria Sand in Game of Thrones, smacked a stormtrooper in the head, knocked him out cold, and then also grabbed under his helmet and threw him to the ground. This is somewhat only less embarrassing, but in regards to the other failure on Ubisoft's docket, we have Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I know that we focused a lot on Yasuke himself, and we will in the future. It has also been exposed that, yeah, they're repurposing animations from years old games. This isn't from the most recent Assassin's Creed, okay? This isn't from Valhalla. Hell, this isn't even from Odyssey. This is from old-ass Mirage. What are we doing? Reusing old animations from there? And yeah, okay, like if you're trying to streamline development, if you're just trying to maximize your output, you know the engine inside and out, and if you're just simply reusing a couple of assets, that's totally fine. Now, we've seen a bunch of different jump animations, and we're seeing a lot of striking similarities over there at Ubisoft, okay, the guys behind this game. But yeah, how do I feel about this reuse of assets? I'm just saying that you have a male assassin on the right, and you are supposed to have Naoi, or your shadowy shinobi, on the left. And why are they jumping in the exact same way in different parts of the world and different times in the world? Yeah, if this is supposed to be an accurate and authentic experience, which we talked about recently, why are they jumping the exact same way? Oh, same type of training, right? They're assassins and all that stuff. It's just yet another knock against Ubisoft for being the hacks that we all basically know they are at this point in time. A lot of us have known this for years, but now it's just becoming ever more ever present. And you know who's really bringing this stuff to light? The Japanese government. Oh, right. They're still interested in desecration of their history, I would imagine. Japanese government exposes another lie of Assassin's Creed Shadows collaborator Thomas Lockley. Yeah, he was a fan fiction artist, so that's basically the easiest way to explain his involvement in this scheme, writing about how he wanted to be the sheaths to Yasuke's sword back in the cut, and how he loves Japanese culture and all that crap. Japanese government, and specifically the Gumna Prefecture, exposed another lie in Assassin's Creed Shadows collaborator Thomas Lockley. Oh no, I didn't work with Ubisoft. I just did a podcast, and they just, used a lot of my research to justify their stupid changes. Lockley collaborated with Ubisoft on Assassin's Creed Shadows for an episode of the company's Echoes of History podcast titled Yasuke, the First African Samurai Podcast. The description of the episode states Yasuke is one of the most captivating and yet mysterious figures within Japanese history. Well, not really, because actual historians, the one that we highlighted a couple times ago, basically said, yeah, it's all kind of settled. He was at best a retainer of Oda Nobunaga, and at worst a sword bearer. Like, he had no stature, he had no standing in culture at all outside of just going around from place to place, being a novelty of the emperor. In 1581, at the height of the Civil War, he crossed paths with the country's most powerful warlord, Oda Nobunaga. Their meeting between the two men together and set Yasuke on a path of becoming the first known samurai of African descent in Japan. That is a lie. Delving into the history behind one of the two main characters of the latest Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Matt Lewis and Thomas Lockley examined the few surviving historical sources to reveal what we know about Yasuke, Japan's first African samurai. Yeah, and more about that podcast, frankly, I don't care about. Podcast host host Matt Lewis also introduces the episode saying, in case you haven't had the chance to see it yet, the world premiere trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows was released, and you can see it. It takes place in feudal Japan, the time famous for the samurais and ninjas, an era rich in history, culture, and stories, and yet we had to invent some in order to fit our ideology. For the next few episodes of the series, I'll be exploring the fascinating period in history. So far, we've traveled back to the Sengoku period, sowed the seeds of unification of Japan and the culture collider, and the arrival of Portuguese missionaries on Japanese shores. Today, we're tracing the story of the key figure in this era of upheaval. Japan's first black samurai, Yasuke, and I ended up sitting down with Lockley, who was brought in by Ubisoft for his work on African Samurai, the true story of Yasuke. However, as initially reported by Thibaut at Minimal Effort Podcast, the Gumna Prefecture noted that Lockley misinterpreted the word Kuraho, during the television special titled Black Samurai Yasuke, the African samurai who served Nobunaga. In the archives of the Gumna Prefecture's website, a question is asked. I have heard that an ancient document in the Gumna Prefectural archives contains the description of a Kuraho, black man. Is that true? As translated by DeepL, the government entity responded, the Harima family document, number 1, letters of Kiyomasa Kato, year unknown, addressed to Metazamona Shimakawa and others. Sure. The word Kuroho appears to describe somebody who stole their bike. Related to Hideyoshi Toyotomi's invasion of Korea. The Black Samurai Yasuke, the African samurai who served Nobunaga's broadcast on numbers and stuff. Thomas Lockley, associate professor at Nihon University, stated that Kuroho, mentioned in this documentary, may be the successor of Yasuke, a black samurai who served Oda Nobunaga. The document is a Kuroho document. Oh, really? They continued, first of all, we have the archives. We do not recognize this Kuroho as a black person at all. We're surprised by Mr. Lockley's suggestion. In fact, whether or not this Kuroho was Yasuke, there has been a view that he was presumed to be black. Nakajima Rakiyaki's 16th century late Kyoshi, Southeast Asia trade Shingaku Sajizashi? Sure. At this point, however, it is difficult to make a definite determination, since the blacks appear in only one place in this document. For example, the word Kuroho also appears in Tales of the Genji, which means Kuroho needed incense, and seems to occur frequently in Japanese classics. This even gets worse. So in addition, some of the staff members have suggested that it would be more natural to see it as a description of an object rather than a person. When reading our documents. Talk about objectifying someone. Based on the above, it is the opinion of the archive staff in the museum that it is difficult to immediately conclude that Kuroho is a black person at this point in time. Oh my god. It could have been referring to ceremonial garb, theoretically, in this article, as much as Yasuke is a samurai, and that's the only indication that he had any more of standing than the average rank and file person in the orbit of Nobunaga. This appears to be one of the many lies Lockley has told. One of the biggest he has told is how he had nothing to do with Assassin's Creed Shadows. He posted on Facebook before shutting it down. Thank you for the support over the years. Due to the hate mail connected with the Assassin's Creed game, with which I have nothing to do with. You did a podcast with them, and have no intention of playing, but many people seem to think I'm responsible for. I will be freezing this account. I hope not forever, but who knows? I think you'll probably be able to start it back up at the beginning of the year after everybody's already forgot about this disaster. Mostly because Ubisoft wants to rip off a game that is so much better and will likely receive a sequel in the very near future after all of this dies down. I mean, if I was Sucker Punch over there, and if I really, really wanted to put my foot on the neck of my competitor that is obviously trying to rip me off, and it's hilarious, right? Because a Star Wars Outlaws developer was also talking about how they took great inspiration from Ghosts of Tsushima. And I made the quip at the time. It's like, yeah, obviously there's probably another game that takes a lot of inspiration for. And here we are. Ubisoft wants to replicate Ghosts of Tsushima's success in Japan with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, are you going to get that? Like, there's a government investigation going on. Every single one of your trailers, every single one of your posts gets ratioed when it's directed at your Japanese audience. You have tried to put out an apology that you contradicted yourself in 4 slides over for your Japanese audience. They don't want it, bro. Shadow's head producer, Carl One, who said that, yeah, we're trying to make an authentic experience, says he is looking to replicate the success of Ghost of Tsushima in Japan with the Assassin's Creed Shadows with an authentic product. Authentic! It's supposed to be authentically Japanese. Just don't mind our lack of historical accuracy. It's important from an artistic perspective, but also from a commercial one too. Assassin's Creed Shadows is an opportunity for Ubisoft to grow the series in Japan. It's unusual for Western developed action games to sell in large quantities in Japan, and especially now that there is a market console collapse going on in Asia right now, where everybody's moving to PC or to handheld. So that's why this right here is just simply a foolish endeavor. But it does happen, and one notable example of Sony's Ghost of Tsushima, which is also a historical action-adventure game set in Japan that is actually faithful to Japanese history. Jeez. But yes, developed in the West. That game went on to sell over 1 million copies in the country, and Ubisoft will be looking for the same with Shadows. That means, yeah, it's vital for Shadows to be as authentic as possible. Obviously, when we make a game, we're trying to appeal to a global audience. Oh yeah, we know. Since we are making the game in Japan, we hope to appeal to more Japanese players. So it's very important that we try to be as authentic as possible. We come from a humble position. If we don't know anything, we need to learn everything from scratch. We are making sure we respect things. No, you aren't. Because that is something very important to Japanese people, as it is in many other countries. It's hilarious because at least when you've set your previous games, your previous installments in Assassin's Creed in different locations in the world, you've actually represented the people that are integral to those countries and those cultures. It's just, this is the first time with one of the most suggested settings, you decided to stick a chick in it and make it lame and now verifiably gay, as well as promoting the opposite of stopping Asian hate by having a large black guy cave in the skulls of a bunch of Asian people going about their days. I don't think this is going to take off in Japan. Hell, I barely think it's going to take off in the West, because this thing has been a story since its announcement, and not a good one for Ubisoft. And Ubisoft has been having quite a year, starting off with a bang with Skull and Bones, and then going out with a whimper with Assassin's Creed Shadows. And with all of these stories coming up on a consistent basis, I wouldn't be surprised if we aren't talking about this game again in the very near future. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.